Welcome back to Margaritas in Paradise. Hey, I'm getting back to the Gary saga. I've had everybody on the street ask me what's been going on with that, and some of them are kind of following along as it's happening. Locally, they have figured out who Gary is and that sort of thing. And just in the last few days, a lot's really went down, and I'm going to go ahead and just kind of tell you the story as Gary's kind of related to me. He had told me that it was, I think, about 4 days ago or so, that Saad went out looking for a job. Basically, she met up with a friend and went out looking for a job, and she was gone for like 4 or 5 hours, and she ended up getting back to Gary's. He had all these shopping bags. Okay, and obviously from probably Terminal 21 or something like that. Anyway, as soon as she came into Gary's place, she got all excited and went and jumped on him basically, and how excited she was to see him and that sort of thing. Gary, of course, was wanting to know right away about looking for a job. Did she find anything? And she said no, she really didn't. She found one place that was hiring. It was a coffee shop, but they'd only paid 12,000 baht a month, and that wasn't enough to support her here in the Pattaya area and her family back home. The next day, Gary had decided that he was going to make an offer after talking to us and everything else to Saad to try to get her to decide to just stay there and take care of him. And she could find a job. That wasn't a problem, but he didn't want her definitely working nights and things like that. He wanted her to be around when he was around. And so he ended up offering her basically 5,000 baht a week. He told her that he would take care of everything else, food and things like that, and right away she thought, yeah, this is probably her best deal, and she immediately accepted it, and she was really happy about it and everything. And he had mentioned that her hair wasn't looking too great or anything, and maybe she should go get her hair washed and styled up and everything. And she asked him for 1,000 baht to go do that, and he immediately gave her 1,000 baht, and she was getting ready to leave, and she asked Gary if she could use his motorbike to go take care of that and come back. And Gary didn't have a problem with that. It wasn't probably an hour later or so, he gets a message, and she's been involved in a motorbike accident. Person that she hit or wanted 5,000 baht to take care of their damages to their motorbike. Of course, Gary's concerned right away and make sure that she's okay, and basically says, you know what, keep the guy there and go ahead and call the police. And he said, I'll come out there and we'll get my insurance company to come out and negotiate everything through that. So I said, okay. So Gary, I guess, gets a bolt or something or another and heads out. By the time he arrived out there, he finds Saw and his motorbike, but there's nobody else there. And he asked Saw right away, well, where's the guy that you hit? And she said, well, he didn't want the police to come. All I had was that 1,000 baht that you gave me. So he said he would take that, and he ended up leaving. What damage happened to my motorbike? And Gary's looking at the motorbike, and he doesn't really see any damage. And Saw points out on the back muffler area, there's a small dent. And Gary's thinking to himself, man, he's thinking in the back of his head that maybe that happened a long time ago, but he couldn't remember or anything else. Anyway, he kind of blew it off, but that was definitely a red flag there. That was something worth mentioning that he told me that night about. Anyway, he ended up taking Saw on the motorbike to go get her hair done from there. And he ended up paying, it was 200 baht to get her hair washed and blown dry or something like that. They ended up going out to eat from there. I think they did another mogata type of a hot pot or something like that. And then they went for drinks. And of course, Saw wanted to go back to her sister's bar. And Gary basically said, you know what? I'm done with these lady drinks. We're not going back there anymore. Saw wasn't happy about, but they went to another friend of Gary's and our whole group birthday party, a guy by the name of Hardy. That was happening over at the Happy Bar. They ended up meeting us and our whole group of guys, and right away when Gary and Saw arrived, now this is pretty much the first time our whole group's meeting Saw, where we're actually getting to see who Saw is and that sort of thing. And I'll tell you what, in all honesty, she looked a little bit older. You know, she didn't look like your normal bar type person at all. She looked pretty nice so overall. Everybody was impressed, but what we weren't impressed with is as soon as she arrived, it was like a hide and seek type game. I mean, she was in the toilet more so than she was sitting with Gary. We just assumed she was on the phone or something or another, and she'd leave the toilet and then she'd go stand out on the road, and we were like, what the heck's going on? Gary recognized this right off the bat, and he actually confronted Saw, and Saw said, you know, she just didn't feel comfortable there. For some reason, something wasn't right. She felt like all the other girls were looking at her and she wanted to leave. And Gary said that's okay and that they would go to another bar. Gary let us know what was going on and we agreed to meet him. Gary and Saw ended up going to another bar down the road, another German bar. Of course, everything's German around here. Hey, by the way, Kansas City Chiefs, 15-1, baby. All right, go Chiefs. I just started my members only area. Check that out. There's a little button there, a join button. If you're interested, there's also a little video that explains everything. And lastly, I want to put a shout out to Oleg from Germany. All right, I saw him up at one of the parties just recently. And another shout out to Matt L. Matt L's the first member of my members only area, and I appreciate it, Matt. Thank you very much. I'll tell you what, Gary is already showing a different side of Gary, the one that we don't normally see. And what I mean is, he stopped seeing everybody. Now it's 10 days or so, something like that. You know, that it wasn't the normal Gary. He's really liking with Saw. And he's trying to adapt. I don't want to say compromise, but he is to a certain extent compromising and trying to make her happy, make her comfortable with her surroundings and moving to another bar. And that was okay because he wasn't planning on spending a lot of time out that night. And another thing was Saw, I know that she was kind of on Gary a little bit about going and seeing her sister. And Gary made it bluntly clear to all of us that he was done paying for lady drinks. As far as he was concerned, Saw's sister's bar was off limits. He wasn't going to go back there. If she wanted to go visit her sister, she could do it. He was done going there. The next day, Saw ends up going out for something or another, and she comes back and she has a present, I think possibly a Christmas present or something like that for Gary. It was a matching Santa Claus t-shirt. And Saw had one for her. So the next day when we saw Gary and Saw, they were in these matching t-shirts, and he just thought it was the greatest thing in the world. Saw was happy that they were dressed alike when she was out with him. Now, I understand that. You know, it doesn't matter whether I'm with Amazon or Cat or whoever I'm with. Everybody likes to kind of dress similar, you know, in red outfits or white or black or whatever. So I do get that. On Christmas morning, Saw asked Gary, she wanted to go home to visit her daughter. And Gary thought it was a good idea. She even asked whether he would like to go or not. And he was like, no, he's not interested in going to the village. But she said, well, I'll only go for a day. I'll be back the next day. And Gary said, oh yeah, that's fantastic. So what Gary ended up doing was giving Saw 10,000 baht. Now, he gave her 5,000 for this last week that she had been there, basically. And he also gave her another 5,000 as a Christmas gift. She was just loving life, basically, that felt like he was a generous man and that sort of thing. So basically, the next day, she takes off early in the morning. And by the time Gary wakes up, he's calling her up Of course, he's missing her, that sort of thing. And she's in a car. Now, it kind of threw him off a little bit that she was supposed to be taking a van up to the village. And it turns out, I don't know if it was at the bus station or wherever it was, she ended up meeting somebody that was going to the same area that she was going. So he agreed to take her, and she would get there quicker. And that sounded good to her. But to Gary, he was another red flag for him. Yeah, he's questioning that. And Gary even told her, that's what he said to me. He said, hey, take a picture of this guy. I want to see this guy. She didn't want to do that. She said, no, she cannot. This guy's older. It would be offensive for her to be taking a picture of him while he's driving. Since she's the only one in the vehicle, she didn't want to upset the guy, make him uncomfortable. Maybe the guy would pull over and tell her to get out in the middle of nowhere, and then what would she do? So she didn't want to take a chance that she would upset this guy or not. So she refused to take this picture, which was, of course, another red flag for Gary. You know what he's thinking. She's with a boyfriend or something like that. A few hours later, Sa sends a photo of her and her daughter and said that I've arrived and I'll see you tomorrow. He did try to get a hold of her at one point, and she didn't answer for whatever reason. The next morning, Gary wakes up to Sa arriving back at his place. She runs in, jumps on the bed, and he's in awe that she's even back early. Now, don't get me wrong, Gary's kind of similar to me, sleeps until 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so, and the thing was that Sa was just so excited. So he got Sa to settle down and found out what the deal was, and apparently she had to take the van back this time, and they left real early in the morning. When she arrived to the village, her father had told her that he was able to sell some old machinery and was able to get money for that. Ended up giving Sa 5,000 baht. Sa brought that back to give to Gary as a partial repayment of what she owed Gary. And Gary couldn't hardly believe it. I can't believe it. None of our group, it was like, what? So she has this money cash in hand, and of course Gary takes it. Gary ended up taking it, and he took the money and set it up on a TV stand. Anyway, there it's at. He's pretty excited, sounding kind of trustworthy. Gary let Sa know right away that night that they were all going to go meet his friends back at a bar and listen to some music, maybe dance, that sort of thing, and have a good time that night. That afternoon, they ended up going out to dinner. They ended up going back to the happy bar. And of course, Sa was not happy about that at all. By the time they arrived, the band was already playing. Gary was really into the music and wanted to get her up dancing. Sa immediately excused herself to go use the toilets, and she was in there again for a long time. Everybody there recognized right away it was kind of a repeat of a few nights ago, and she was just really, really uncomfortable. It was odd enough that she would be in the toilet, and then the next thing you know, she's outside. So she had to go through the bar to get to the toilet. She would go out maybe the back door or something like that and come all the way around the bar, and then she'd be out in the street. It was noticeable to me as well as Gary, and we were like, what's going on here? He went up to her basically and said, hey, what's going on? What is this about this bar that you don't like? And she said, it just makes me feel uncomfortable to be here. This isn't my type of music. I feel like everybody's watching me. I want to go see my sister. I haven't seen my sister in a while. Can we just go see my sister? Gary ended up saying, yeah, I want to be here with my friends. Why don't you go visit your sister, and then I'll pick you up later? Gary ends up giving her a couple $100 baht. So she takes off. She comes in and says goodbye to everybody, which was pretty good, and she takes off. He comes in and kind of tells us what's going on with her, about her feeling so uncomfortable there. Of course, we ask Gary, there's obviously something more to this story. What's so special about this bar? About that time, the band ended up taking a break. Grant, I think basically the leader, the lead singer of the band, he comes down and he says hello to all of us and everything, and immediately asks about Sa, calls her by name. There's another red flag right there. So Gary says, hey, what's going on? How do you know Sa? Grant says, well, that's my brother's ex-girlfriend. Gary's like, what? You know, as far as Gary was concerned, he was the first Falong that she had ever been with. Asked Grant right away, he's like, well, what happened? What's going on? You said, girlfriend. He said, well, my brother ended up passing away not too long ago down in Phuket. He was with Sa. Something happened. He had been having stomach problems all of his life, diagnosed with stomach cancer, and he was on some type of treatment for that. But anyway, he was dealing with that issue, and he was down in Phuket and apparently died in his sleep. The maid service of the hotel found him. Even though we knew that Sa was with him, she was nowhere to be found. And nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Everything he had was there that we knew of. There wasn't any great amounts of money missing or anything like that, or jewelry that we knew of anyway. But she wasn't there, and we just didn't hear anything from her. When I saw her here, I thought I saw her the other night, but when I saw her here, I wanted to touch bases with her and find out what's going on. His brother's body was ended up sent to Bangkok, I believe is what he said, and they did an autopsy, and they did find traces of a pesticide in his body. They did rule that it was cancer, and maybe the pesticide had something to do with the treatment type of thing as well. But it still, kind of raised a question in Grant's head. And of course, we got flags shooting up all over the place about what if, that type of thing. Gary ended up telling Grant, well, we're going to go meet her in a little while, and we'll find out what's going on. If there's anything, we'll try to get back with you and give you an update. And he said, yeah, great. And in all honesty, Grant didn't seem overly concerned about Sa or anything like that. He was more curious than anything. It wasn't a track her down type thing or anything like that. Gary immediately started sending Sa several messages asking her to come back to Happy Bar. There was no reply whatsoever. And we sat there and tossed the stew basically around the table there talking about this scenario for a little bit. But eventually it was bothering Gary so much that he said that, hey, he's going to take off and go find Sa and find out for himself what's going on. I ended up volunteering to go with him. We ended up going down, it wasn't too far away, but went down to her sister's bar, and we didn't see Sa or her sister there. One of the other girls came up, and we said that we were looking for Sa. Had said, well, they went to go get something to eat, and that they'd be right back. We ordered a couple drinks, and we sat down. We were waiting. In the meantime, of course, Gary's sending Sa messages waiting for her to come back, but there's no replies, no read indications or anything like that. And this is all on Line app. We're there for, I don't know, probably 40 minutes or so, something like that. And eventually the mama-san comes over, and we knew the mama-san from prior, and she's like, hey, do you some of the girls to come over and keep you guys company? What's going on? And we're like, no, we're here waiting on Sa and her sister to return. And she said, oh, who is Sa and who's her sister? Gary's like, well, Sa's the girl I've been coming up here with all last week buying lady drinks for. And she's like, who's that? I've seen you up here, but I didn't see any girl that you were with. And I'm sitting there like, what the heck? I've heard about all this the entire time. And now this mama-san's denying that this girl Sa even exists, much less her sister. It's like just flat out denying that her sister exists. And she had told Gary straight out, it was all a mess. Eventually, the mama-san called over the girls in the bar. Even the girl that had told us Sa's sister and Sa had went to get something to eat, denied everything. They never worked here. Who are you talking about? So everybody at this bar is denying everything about even knowing Sa. About that time, Gary looks down at his phone and sees that Sa's name is now empty chat. Okay, so he has all these messages still. She's, I don't know, blocked him, I guess, or something like that, right? This has got Gary pissed. We go ahead and pay Ben. Gary says, well, I'm going to go back and make sure she's not robbing my condo. So anyway, I ended up going back with him. We get back to his place, and all of her clothes are gone. Her Miss Kitty blanket's gone. Everything's gone that was hers. But one of the things that I had noticed when I'm standing in the room is there was this money that was sitting out by the TV. And so I said, what about this money? Is she forget to, Gary looks at it and says, no, he said, that's money I put there. She paid me back 5,000 baht from before. She knew it was there. She just didn't take it. This was yesterday, and Gary hasn't heard of nothing from her since. He's checked back with the bar. They're standing their grounds as not knowing who she is. So it's a horrible way to end the story here. What do you think? Anyway, we're hoping something else develops. Hopefully it was a mistake. Gary is crushed. I really feel bad for Gary, but I'm happy as well he didn't take a heavier loss because he was really falling for her. All right, so let's see here. I have another shout out to Ernest T for super thanks. I appreciate it so much. Your generosity just, I don't ever expect this, so thank you very much. If you're interested in buying me a cup of coffee or anything like that, you can check the description below. Check the description below for other money-saving tips. Let's see, on the weight loss thing, I'm down to 135.3 kilos right now, so definitely the lowest spot that I've been for a long time. I have had a couple drinks, but I'm still trying to take it really easy on the alcohol and that sort of thing. Other than that, I don't know if there's going to be any more to this Gary saga or not. We're still waiting. I'll give you an update as it comes about. Definitely check my members only section. There's members only videos in there and things like that as well. And you can kind of give me your opinion on that. All right, that's all I have for now. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.